You're watching UATV News. My name is Ina Kosinska. Good evening. The European Union has imposed sanctions on members of Wagner's private Russian military company. This was reported on Twitter by Brussels journalist Richard Jozwik. Restrictive measures were also introduced against 3 energy companies and 8 individuals. Their and company names will become known after the publication of this decision in the official journal of the EU. Meeting of the EU foreign ministers took place in Brussels today. Their build-up and movement of Russian troops on the border with Ukraine was also discussed.
This is going to be the continuation of the G7. Yesterday we had the G7, and there was a strong agreement position in order to have a strong stance behind Ukraine, defending their sovereignty and territorial integrity. We are going to discuss with the ministers today. We are on the turn mode, on the dissuasion mode, in order to the crisis to start. But in any case, we will send a clear signal that any aggression against Ukraine will have a high cost for Russia if this happens. But now we are trying to do our best in order to prevent this from happening.
Ukraine does not recognize as valid Russian passports issued by force to citizens of Ukraine in the occupied Crimea and in certain areas of Donetsk and Luhansk regions uncontrolled by Kyiv. Therefore, such citizens will not be subject to the provisions of the multiple citizenship law. This is what representative of the President of Ukraine in the Constitutional Court, Fedor Venislavsky, told our TV channel. He also assured that there would be no negative legal consequences for people who are forced to obtain Russian documents.
Ukrainian state does not recognize the fact of foreign citizenship, which persons are received by force. That is, were forced to because of certain threats to their freedom, life, or to normal existence in the temporarily occupied territories. We believe that those actions violate international human rights standards, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the Convention for the Protection of Human Rights and Fundamental Freedoms. That is, in this case, in our opinion, those documents are insignificant, and therefore they do not carry any special legal consequences.
The best response to the risks posed by the Russian Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline is to refuse to launch it. It poses a threat to not only Ukraine, but also to Europe. This was stated by Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki at a meeting with German Chancellor in Warsaw. In turn, Olaf Scholz announced the support of Ukraine from Germany.
We continue to feel responsible for the future, for ensuring that Ukraine's gas transit business remains successful, and will take care to make sure it is. We will also help Ukraine be a country that will be a major source of renewable energy and the necessary production that results from that. And that touches on what I said at the beginning. We are in concrete talks about how we can help achieve that. We are convinced that Nord Stream 2 will increase the Kremlin's possibilities of putting pressure on Ukraine and the European Union. It can potentially be an instrument of the price dictate, and to some extent we observe this type of phenomenon even before the opening of Nord Stream 2. We are all the more concerned about the scenarios that will be possible after the possible opening of Nord Stream 2. We point to these risks. We point to the possibility of blackmail and the possibility of tightening the political and energy loop on Ukraine, which in turn may have far-reaching political consequences for Poland and for the European Union. We point to these risks and try to work out a solution with our German partners that will respond to these risks. The best solution would be to prevent the opening of the Nord Stream 2.
Tortures, rapes and murders do not stop in dozens of illegal prisons in the territories not controlled by Ukraine. Both the military and the civilian are imprisoned by illegal armed groups. Human rights defenders, representatives of the Ukrainian authorities and international partners held a discussion about the fate of illegally detained persons in the uncontrolled territories of Donbas. What is happening now in illegal prisons and how will the fair punishment reach the executioners, my colleagues found out. At least 200 places in temporarily uncontrolled by Ukraine areas of Donetsk and Luhansk regions are used to illegally detain Ukrainian citizens. Hundreds of people have been tortured in such prisons. They are being tortured in a way that is very difficult to imagine. This is an intimidation procedure. This is an instrument of breaking the will. After such places, a person and people surrounding them are completely deprived of the desire for at least some thinking.
According to human rights activists, until now illegal armed groups have been holding about 300 Ukrainians. There are women among them. For example, Irina's mother, a physics teacher, was detained 6 months ago when she was on her way to Horlivka to visit her sick mother. Now the woman is being illegally detained in remand prison in Donetsk.
They accuse her of Article 321. This is espionage from 10 to 20 years in jail, life imprisonment or even death penalty.
The most notorious illegal prison in temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine is the Izolatsiya. To tell more about it and other places of detention and torture, the project Izolatsiya Must Speak was launched. The most important mission is to bring to the world the facts about human rights violations in the uncontrolled territories. The more we talk both in Ukraine and on international scene about these crimes, the more we bring this information to international organizations, to public figures abroad, the more we attract their attention, the more chances we have to save lives. Now the Office of the Prosecutor General of Ukraine is investigating about 1,000 of crimes that relate to illegal imprisonment, torture and murders in certain areas of Donetsk and Luhansk regions. To prevent executioners from illegal armed groups from escaping punishment, human rights activists ask President Volodymyr Zelensky to sign a law on war crimes.
People who commit crimes in the occupied territories are convinced of their impunity. They are convinced that they will be amnestied, that they will be exchanged, that in general the statute of limitations will expire. But international crimes do not have limitations, and thus they avoid responsibility. When the president signs the bill, it will be a direct signal to the occupied territories, to the people who are currently torturing and abusing prisoners in secret prisons in the Izolatsiya, that criminal responsibility is individual and that international crimes have no statute of limitations.
The website izolatsiya.ui.org.ua was launched together with the project Izolatsiya Must Speak. It has two versions, in English and in Ukrainian. It tells about transformation of the premises of non-governmental platform for cultural initiatives Izolatsiya in Russia-occupied Donetsk into a legal prison, located on the site of a former insulation factory. Now the illegally detained citizens of Ukraine are being cruelly tortured there. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Yulia Krychkova, UATV News.
Ukraine plans to introduce the third dose of COVID-19 vaccines. Minister of Health Viktor Lyashko is going to sign the corresponding order. However, not everyone will be vaccinated. Meanwhile, the ministry reports that 4,073 new cases of COVID-19 were recorded in Ukraine over the past day.
Хочу відразу наголосити, що мова йде саме про додаткову дозу.
I want to note at once that this is an additional dose, not a booster. An additional dose is a dose that is administered to achieve better protection for those who are not in good health, namely immunocompromised individuals who have lower vaccine efficacy compared to vaccine efficacy in the general population. We also continue to work effectively on delivering vaccines to Ukraine and planning future deliveries.
The pilot version of the e-Pitrimka or e-support program starts today in the Diia State Services application. After an update, one can apply for the payment of 1,000 hryvnias for vaccination against coronavirus. 6 banks are currently participating in the program, but the list will be expanded. The money can be spent on a certain list of services, namely sports, entertainment, trips around Ukraine, or the purchase of books. They cannot be cashed or used for other purposes.
Just update your Diia application and sign up for beta testing. We are preparing to launch a new service in the Diia that is changing the actual place of residence for internally displaced persons. We simplify the lives of thousands of Ukrainians. After all, instead of queues, it will be enough just to fill out a short form on the Diia web portal.
In the Lviv Church of the Holy Apostles Peter and Paul, the restoration of unique frescoes by the Czech artist Francis Eckstein has been completed. Their age is almost 3 centuries. They have been restored by Ukrainian and Polish masters for 7 years. And finally, the restored masterpieces can be seen by everyone. Our journalists have also admired them.
The largest international restoration project in Ukraine. This is how Polish and Ukrainian restorers called their joint work. They have been working together on it for 7 years. During this entire period, foreign specialists moved to Lviv and lived there almost all the time.
It was a challenge for us, and it's very nice to see the result now, because now we can look at everything from a height of 26 meters. It's a very interesting work. You had to be constantly focused.
Czech artist Francis Eckstein created the church frescoes back in 1740. Since then, the temple has experienced difficult times. After the Second World War, the roof leaked for a long time, and that is why many of the frescoes were destroyed and lost. Each process was quite difficult. It required a certain skilled work. Therefore, it was not necessary to divide some harder work into processes. It all required work. The restoration budget amounted to more than 20 million hryvnias. 20 Ukrainian and Polish architects worked on the project. Most of the work was funded by the Ministry of Culture of Poland. A lot of money came from the parishioners of the church.
This church once played an important role in the Kingdom of Poland, and today it is one of the most iconic places of worship in Lviv, Ukraine. This is a church where soldiers and veterans gather and military chaplains serve.
During the Soviet period, the Jesuit church, as it was called earlier, was used as a book depository. There were about 3 million books. Today, the Kherson Church is under the care of the Center for Military Chaplaincy of the Lviv Archeparchy of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church. The restoration of the temple is planned to be completed by spring. Reported by Vadim Kromer and Julia Bill, UATV News.
Ukrainians have been the best 3 years in a row. Pavlo Lacey got Overseas Sword of the UK Royal Military Academy. This was reported by the UK Embassy in Ukraine. The award was presented by Princess Anne during the Sovereign's Parade. It is awarded every year to the cadet who was demonstrated the best academic performance. This year, officers from 26 different countries studied at the academy. Last year, Anton Savenko, Ukrainian cadet of Odessa Military Academy, also became the best foreign graduate. And in 2019, Artem Baranenko got the Overseas Sword as well. Ukrainian Shchedryk song is 105 years old. For the first time, the melody sounded in Kyiv. A large-scale campaign will be launched in Ukraine for the anniversary of the symbol of Christmas. Within its framework, a concert will take place on Mikhailivska Square on December 18, and a 3D projection will be shown which will tell 4 stages from the history of Shchedryk. It will be repeated on December 19, 25 and 26, and next year Shchedryk will travel the world, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs tells. The events are already planned in the United States. There in New York's Carnegie Hall, where Christmas melody was the first performed 100 years ago. That's all for this hour. More updates on our official website, YouTube, Twitter and Facebook pages. Thank you for staying with the UATV channel. See you tomorrow. Goodbye.